I was born into the Exclusive Brethren, which started in the as the Plymouth Brethren back in the 1830s. An Anglican cleric left the Church of Ireland and started what was known as the Plymouth Brethren. And in 1848, there was a big split, and the Plymouth Brethren, under J. N. Darby, became known as the Exclusive Brethren. And that particular sect was what I was born into in 1966. And I was there for 22 years. We weren't allowed to eat with anybody who wasn't in our particular group. And so that meant that we couldn't go into people's houses other than people who were part of the group. We couldn't have pets. At one time you could have pets, and then the then man of God said pets are now out. And I know two people who had to put their dog down. And so who you could only marry people who were in that particular group. When I was 18, a new law came out that houses had to have were not allowed to have shared drains or adjoining walls. And so we had to move from Wavertree to Mossley Hill. A year later, another law came out, upgraded, which was that every house had to be detached. And so we had to move again to a detached house. And then there was rules of hair. Men couldn't have beards, moustaches, or these things. Women couldn't wear makeup or dye their hair or have jewellery. You couldn't have television, as I said before, radio, computers, mobile phones, although that law has changed. And a friend of mine was separated from his family and wife and 3 children for having a mobile phone. The rules were that modern technology was strictly forbidden. So credit cards, mobile phones, computers. The television was called the pipeline of filth. That you weren't even allowed to physically touch one. And if you did, as I used to, because I used to go to Blackler's, Rumbelows and radio rentals, I used to sneak off and watch the TV at the weekends. I used to change the volume sometimes inside those shops, and I was caught, and I had to confess to priests of my wicked sin. So technology was an absolute no-no. And so it was a life of being controlled and being coerced with fear, really, to believe that if we didn't follow what the man of God said, then we could end up in hell, or we could be ostracised from our families, because if the members who stayed were forbidden from having any contact whatsoever with anybody who left or was put out of their group. And it took 15 years for me to get a phone call from my dad, which was very surprising. And he said to me, we can now see you. And I was shocked, and I said, how come? And he said, because the man of God in Australia now said that they had got it wrong, that they had misunderstood his father, the previous man of God, and so it was okay to see me. And so I said, okay, I'll come round and see you today, please. And so I went round, and for the next 6 months, I went round once a month to see my dad and mum. And I took my daughter with me, who was 3, who had never seen her grandparents. They had never seen her because they weren't allowed to. And it was quite formal, really. Spoke a lot about the weather, things like that, But after 6 months, I tried to see my dad, and he always made excuses. And after a few weeks, I said, Dad, are you allowed to see us still? And to my shock, he said, no. And I said, well, you said 6 or 7 months ago that the man of God had said you got it all wrong. And my dad shocked me by saying that it was just to try and get you to come back. And years later, meeting up with people who had left the Exclusive Brethren, they told me that time was called the review, apparently, when they were trying to get people to come back by allowing them to visit them. Still couldn't eat with them, but could visit them.